Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and very pleased to have my old friend and colleague at Air America Radio, Richard Greene.
How are you, man?
On the line with us. Your website is?
So many different things. We got to figure out what it is that we're talking about.
Right. Well, I was just giving you a chance to plug something.
Thank you.
But
no, what I want to plug is a whole new America than the one that it looks like we're teed up to have on January 20th. And you and I have been talking about a whole bunch of things. And I was here last time talking about Rodrigo Duterte.
Yeah, I wanted to have that conversation again, or revisit that conversation, not have it again, but because you went to the Philippines. You're a consultant to, you were a consultant to Princess Di, you're a consultant to famous people on how to be functional in the media, shall we say. Correct me if I'm getting any of this wrong.
Political communication strategist.
There you go.
I've worked on 7 presidential campaigns in 5 countries.
Right.
And the last one that I worked on was in the Philippines.
Right. And you were representing the guy who was basically the Hillary Clinton of the Philippines that everybody assumed was going to win, who was, kind of middle of the road, moderate, what we would today call a Democrat, right? And
competent former cabinet secretary, former senator, very
great CV,
super smart.
Right. And we had this conversation before the election, as I recall. And the point that you were making was, don't think that just because Hillary Clinton is the most qualified and because everybody, by and large, most Americans, by and large, agree with the policy things in the Democratic Party platform, that she's going to win. And you had seen this Duterte guy who, as a mayor, complained about the fact that he hadn't been invited to the gang rape of an attractive woman in his town. And seriously complained about it. It wasn't a joke. And bragged about how he had his political opponents and drug dealers murdered. And once he became president, literally started hiring hit squads. Salon Magazine did a whole piece on a profile of one of these women, $200 a hit, walk up to some, and they particularly likes to hire women because people don't expect a woman to walk up, put a gun to their head and blow their brains out. And it's going on, as you said, to this day. And this guy referred to himself during the election, his election, as the Donald Trump of the Philippines. What are we in for, Richard?
Well, what I said here before the election is that glorious promises delivered with supreme confidence will always trump rationality and logic.
No pun intended.
So to speak. And what scared me about what went on in the Philippines was, even with these horrendous things that Duterte was doing, his approval ratings never were going down. They were only staying the same or going up. And the same thing with Trump, one thing after another after another. What we're in for is, in some ways, less bad than Duterte. I don't think that Trump is going to order extrajudicial killings in the streets of drug dealers, but way worse, because the United States has 7,000 nuclear warheads. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump, as I said in my Huffington Post piece, is Donald Trump mentally ill, which has over 100,000 likes, and people have been reading it. And it's the expert opinion of psychiatrists and psychologists who unanimously believe that Donald Trump has narcissistic personality disorder and probably some other things.
I had Dr. Justin Frank on this program talking specifically to this issue. The guy who wrote Bush on the Couch.
Right. So Donald Trump is infinitely scarier than Rodrigo Duterte because the Philippines does not have nuclear weapons, as far as we know. Right. And he's insane in a controllable way. Donald Trump, because he is such an extreme NPD, narcissistic personality disorder person, he will vengefully strike out against anyone who criticizes him. We've seen him do that. Alec Baldwin, Miss Universe, Rosie O'Donnell, the New York Times. It doesn't matter because there's no there. He's an empty shell. He has to get compliments. He has to get acknowledgement. And if a world leader taunts him, God knows what he's going to do. So he is way scarier having the finger on 7,000 nuclear weapons. And so our friend Alan Grayson and I got together and we wrote the Nuclear Sanity Act. Now, Alan, as of a few hours ago, is no longer a congressman, but you can go check it out and ask your own congressman to, in fact, support that legislation, which says Nuclear Sanity Act. We want it to be reintroduced. We want President Obama to sign it or do some sort of executive order in the similar vein, which says that unless America is being attacked, a president does not have the ability to unilaterally launch nuclear weapons, which he currently does. Only one person can do that. And Donald Trump could wake up at 3 a.m, you know this, and do some horrible things. And it requires the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State to sign off on that, which, unless you're in an actual war, seems to be the logical thing to do. Even Israel, Netanyahu himself can't launch a nuclear weapon.
Wow.
Because, and why do we not have, I was just in Karen Bass's office talking to people there. Congresswoman, who is a nurse who has a change.org petition calling on a neuropsychiatric evaluation of Donald Trump. But what do you do with that? We have police officers who are not allowed to get a pistol without having a psychiatric evaluation, and yet we're giving someone 7,000 nuclear weapons. It doesn't make any sense. What we do, quite honestly, is if we pull together as a country and we say we wouldn't allow a pilot who has constant epileptic fits, or as you said, that guy who had suicidal
depression,
right, to take the Germanwings airplane into the ground. We can't have a crazy person in charge of 7,000 nuclear weapons, which means, honestly, in a perfect world, in a Thom Hartmann, Richard Greene world, this man doesn't get to be commander-in-chief. I don't know how that happens, but this is a psychiatric emergency. We need to have an intervention.
Wow.
That's my belief, because I think he's worse than Duterte, to bring that back full circle.
That's pretty startling. So,
am I wrong?
I'm not sure that you are. I do suspect, having lived through the Tuesday night massacre during the Nixon administration, and you and I talked about this on the phone, as I recall, yesterday, yes. Where he fired
Archibald Cox.
Yeah, and then the guy whose name starts with an L. It's been so many years I've forgotten, but he quit also, and he had a series of kind of attorney generals or investigators. So it seems to me that there would be people within the administration or within the chain of command. I just saw a movie by John Pilger called The Coming War with China, and which is not available in the United States, but it's an amazing movie. You can figure out a way to watch it. It's playing all over Europe. BBC or in the UK, they're playing it like every week. And he tells the story of this guy who in Okinawa who gave the military launch command, fire on Beijing.
Right.
And he was nuts, the guy who did it, but he was in charge. And two of his underlings ran over to the place where they launched the things, pulled their service revolvers, held them to the heads of the guys who had the keys, right, and said, "You will not fire these."
Right.
Until the crazy guys showed up and they took him down, and the missiles were never launched. And that story didn't even make the American press for almost 20 years. We almost had a nuclear war. We're running out of time here, Richard, but I'm just hopeful that there's something like that in the...
Well, institutionally, he's allowed to do whatever he wants, but maybe there would be some act of bravery. But I'm saying, let's put in place the Nuclear Sanity Act so we don't have one person in an era of fake news where you even just last week had the Secretary of Defense in Pakistan doing nuclear threats,
nuclear war
based on fake news. So the world has changed. We need to change the protocol around nuclear weapons. Nuclear Sanity Act.
Nuclear Sanity Act. You can check it out. Richard Greene, great to have you with us.
Thanks for all the great work you're doing.
Thanks for dropping by. We'll be back. Or actually, we won't be back. We'll be back tomorrow. Have a great day. And don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires you.
You've been listening
Tag your
to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.